Chris, we're talking about the All-Star game already, All-Star team. Look, man, I looked at the list, and when you start looking at some of the wins, my heart goes out to Bradley Beal. He's leading the league in scoring, but their record is atrocious. They are a bad basketball team. So when you start talking about All-Stars, I think you got to look at Trae Young. Look, Kyrie Irving has missed too many games. I think you got to look at Zach LaVine. I think you got to look at Colin Sexton, James Harden, without a doubt. But to me, when I look at these guards right here, it's tough, man, because at what point do you start factoring in teams' record? I understand one guy is not solely responsible for everything as far as wins and losses, but we put so much emphasis on winning in the NBA to where how do you judge a Bradley Beal when he's on the worst team arguably in the NBA? How do you judge some of these guys when their teams are just so bad? So, Chris, I'm going to throw it back to you in 3D because for me, it's just too early because some of these teams, some of the guys are having great years, but their team record, and you can say the same thing about Luka. Look at Luka's shooting percentages. Look at the Dallas Mavericks team defensively. I mean, if we're just going to make the All-Star team about putting up numbers, then what about winning? Because at the end of the day, you have two types of players. Players that win and players that put up numbers. So what are we going to put the emphasis on? What's going to be the most important? Is it going to be about winning? And I'm not saying you have to have the best or second best record in the league, but you cannot be the worst team in NBA and still have All-Stars. It's just a conversation to have.
No, Sam, I agree with you 1,000%. I just think we live in this new world called now/social media. And as Chris and I were doing the show Thursday night, they were coming at Chris and I heavy. So I said the same thing. I said, people, if I put on one hat and we're just talking about playground all-star and great numbers and Wolves and Wilds who had the most 40s and 50s, yes, Bradley Beal should probably be on that. But I think we're setting a bad precedent because now if that's the case, why not James Harden? Because James Harden got triple-doubles every night. So that's why we have to put the onus on winning as well. So if James Harden was playing well in the West and he comes over to the East and he's getting triple-doubles his first two games with Brooklyn, really? And they win those games? Come on, people. So that's why I agree with you 1,000%, Sam, that we have to put some winning at the end of the day to match some of these numbers. That's why Jaylen Brown, once again, we talked about. His numbers are up. They're winning. Now you go back, you look at Brooklyn. I know Kyrie's missed some games, but Kyrie should probably be there too. So it's like there's a lot of good debates in my opinion, but the last debate should get you over the hump should be winning.
Well, if that's the case, if we see the guards again, I can point out a case for every single guy. For instance, Colin Sexton's numbers don't stand out compared to the rest of the guys in this group. When you look at Trae Young, the fastest player to 400 made threes. Jaylen Brown, new career high 27 a game. James Harden leading the league in assists. Bradley Beal leading the league in scoring. Zach LaVine 27 a game as well. Kyrie, new career high for him. I believe it's 28 a game. But Sexton has the Cavs winning again as their leading scorer, giving you 24 a night. So, like I said, to start this, all of these guys are worthy.
We're missing one. We're missing Malcolm Brogdon on the list.
Oh, there you go.
Come on, upstairs. What are y'all doing upstairs? You making Indiana get mad at us up there. Upstairs.
But that's kind of the point. They're not all going to make it, and we'll see how this thing plays out. We have to move out west now to Sean Powell's, his top five, Dame, Luka, LeBron, Kawhi, and the Joker. It seems as if to be a starter in the West, you have to essentially be an MVP candidate. But then I look at the next five, 3D. Steph, we just said he's leading the league in three-pointers made and total points, and he's not listed as Sean Powell's starter. Yes. Anthony Davis, reigning champion. Rudy Gobert, 29-20 the other night.
Well, when you and I first did this list Thursday night, the Warriors were, I think, 6 or 7, and the Portland Trailblazers up, so we had them in. But we did today, I'm with Sean Powell. I wouldn't have him in because the Warriors are not in the playoffs. So to Sam's point, a lot of these guys have great numbers, but they're not in the playoffs. So I admit, early on, I didn't give Kawhi Leonard and Paul George enough love. So Clipper Nation, you're right. I was wrong on Thursday. I should have given one of those guys some more love, and I didn't. And they're proving now through a few lulls, few win streaks, trying to figure out a few injuries, and here they are right there, number 2. They're ahead of the Lakers, and I had 2 Lakers. Maybe I shouldn't have had AD on. But once again, this is fluid, though, each week. It's going to be fluid until the cutoff date, and that's when we got to make our final decisions.
And the advanced stats showing us that Anthony Davis should be, early in the season, your front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. And we just had a discussion of whether or not he should be an all-star starter. I mean, Sam, when you see all the players that are listed there, I mean, how difficult is it to get this right to be an all-star starter in this league this year for the West Coast?
Well, it's difficult, Chris, especially when you start, I don't know, what's the word I want to use? When you start just putting guys in that starting lineup because of what they've done in the past and who they are. The all-star game is about what have you done each and every year. You have to earn the right to be an all-star. It shouldn't be grandfathered in. It shouldn't be because of what you've done the last 4, 5, 6 years. Every year you should be an all-star. So when I look at that list, Paul George should probably be on that list without a doubt. The list is not in front of me right now. But there are some more deserving players on winning teams. And then I look at Rudy Gobert. Look, Utah Jazz have won 11 games in a row. They have the best record in the NBA. You're going to tell me that Donovan Mitchell should be the only representation for an all-star team there? Rudy Gobert, what he brings to the table is important. Defense, rebounding, blocking shots, and he's scoring. So to me, look, I understand it's the fans' game. The first 5 guys in that starting lineup, the fans are going to pick. But everybody else after that, in my opinion, winning, I'm not saying winning has to be the overall thing, but winning has to be a huge part of the equation because a lot of people put up great numbers on bad teams. And I understand Bradley Beal has to score 40 to get the Washington Wizards a chance to win. I get that. But guess what? You're not winning. And we in this league, in this country, we reward the winners. We don't give ribbons for second and third place. Not in professional sports. There is no, you came close but came up short. No. You got to winning, to me, has to take a priority. And right now, some of those guys are not on winning teams.
Sam, you raise a great point because the Utah Jazz on that 11-game winning streak, most in the NBA this season, won the last 2 without Donovan Mitchell. And kudos has to go to Rudy Gobert for holding down that fort as the best player on the court for them. But then there's 2 or 3 other names that were not on the list because, well, it's just that talented out west. And that's Zion Williamson. The #1 overall pick, you go, well, is he playing that well? 58% from the field in his first 40 games as a pro. No player in NBA history has ever done that. Meaning Zion Williamson, from an offensive perspective, is playing at a historic level, and we're not even mentioning him in the all-star conversation. He's kind of a guy that's after Brandon Ingram, who was an all-star last year. Because if you're going to give it to someone from New Orleans, it looks like maybe it's Brandon Ingram who scored 28 points or more in his last 3 games and has been their best offensive player as well. So 3D, there's that part of the discussion, and I didn't even say the name Ja Morant.
Chris, that's where we go again, Chris. Because do I love watching Z, man? Yes. Is he much-watched TV on League Pass? Yes. Zion Williamson now has gotten his body in better shape. He's no longer part of the minute restriction. His defensive prowess is getting better. I don't think it's enough credit, Sam, for his passing. You know you've been around a young big fella. But when I look down here at the list, they're 14th in the West, just like Bradley Beal in the East. Excuse me, you look down, they're 15th in the East. So all those great numbers they're going, we like watching it. But I have to agree with Sam once again, is that you got to win some more ball games. Otherwise, we need to have an all-star game for performance, and let's have an all-star game for fans with nothing but highlights. And I think that's where the struggle is with all of us. And to your question, Chris, those numbers are great. They're just too far at the bottom of the West.
Chris, think about this. The NBA is one of the few sports that one guy makes a difference. This is my point. You take an all-star off most NBA teams, LeBron James don't play. Lakers lose. You take the best player off most NBA teams most nights, and they struggle to win games. Now, you're telling me you're an all-star. And I'm not saying your team has to be the best record in the league, but you got to be close to or around 500 basketball. If you're that good a player and you're an all-star and you make that significant of a contribution on both ends of the floor, then your team cannot be last or next to last. And you'll be an all-star. You at least got to be a game with a 2 within that 500 mark to give serious consideration. You just can't be one of the worst teams in the league because that means your numbers are not equating to winning on any level.
Well, see, so here's where I get into the Bradley Beal part of the discussion because we know how putrid the Wizards' record is. He is the only player on that team with a positive plus minus. So that means the only time that they're leading in a game or beating their opponent is when he's on the floor. Shouldn't that matter? Also, him being the NBA's leading scorer, despite the fact that the Wizards only have 3 wins this season, 3D?
Yes, it definitely matters because he's doing his job, he's playing hard, he's doing all the things that we've talked about. But I'm not going to let that, excuse me, outweigh another player who's doing the same things that we're talking about. And we put up on that board, there are at least 3 or 4 more guys that are winning, and the only number that may be higher than Bradley is the scoring. The rebounding, the pass, the assist, the steal, all those other numbers are comparable. Now, when you talk about winning, I'm going to give the other guy the nod. Once again, people at home watching, we're not saying it's bad for Bradley. He's just in an unfortunate situation being in Washington.
Chris, think about this. Before the season, with the addition of Russell Westbrook, a lot of people had to watch the Wizards being a playoff team. Now, I know they've had guys in and out of the lineup because of COVID, like a lot of people. I know they've had injuries. But you still have to figure out a way to win some games. And again, I'm going to say this. I'm not saying you got to be 5, 6, 7 games above 500, but you got to be within a game or 2 of 500. You just can't be on the worst team in the NBA because 3D will tell you this. Guys can put up numbers on bad teams. Mm-hmm. Think about this the other night. Bradley Beal put up 37 shots. 3D. When the last time you're in an NBA game, you took 37 shots in an NBA game? Think about that, guys. There's only about 85 to 90 shots in the game. Bradley Beal almost took half of them.
Well, 3D, we know how many shots you took per game. I think you took about 8 threes per game in the season, which you led the league in three-point makes.
Sounds familiar.
That's what we call a harbinger or a segue, a sign of things to come. That's coming a little later in the show, 3D's Outside Shooting. Remember, you can go to NBA.com, cast your vote.